Hello everyone and welcome back to Crayon Code. This is the website we're going to build today, so let's get started right away. Okay, first thing we do is we create a new index HTML, but first here we have two SVGs which I prepared, so you can grab them from the description. There's a link where you can download. And yeah, let's start with our index.html. So good thing is in VS Code, if you type an exclamation mark and then hit tab, you get a completely blank HTML5 document which you can start working with. And first let's set up our title for Beam Cloud. And yeah, since I want to see all the changes, let's open this with the live server. And very nice, so we have a blank document. Okay, so let's start with the header where we're going to put a logo. So we put the class logo here, and the SVG for the logo we're simply going to embed via an image tag. And the logo text is going to be Beam Cloud. And since we still don't have a CSS file, let's create a new one. Styles.css, perfect. And of course we need to include that. Let's do that right here as a style sheet. So, and yeah, the href is simply styles as CSS. And for reason of completeness, we should set the text/CSS style. So very nice. Let's take care of a few basic things in the very beginning. We have a reset code where we reset a few basic stylings like padding, margin, and I want to have box sizing set to border box on every element. So you can see already on the padding on the document itself was gone. Okay, background, which is going to be on the body, and it's a linear gradient which is going to be running from 45 degrees. And I'm going to use variables here, bg start at 0% and bg end at, as one missing, yeah, at 100%. So let's first define these variables and a few other. We have a root scope where we are putting our bg start, which is 2c35a2, and the bg end variable, which is 0f133b. I extracted these color codes simply from the initial input image I'm using, so you can get them from there. And I'm going to define a foreground color, which is a white as basic color, but slightly faded to 90% such that the background is shining a little bit through, so it doesn't actually stand out that much. Yeah, nice, good. Okay, now let's take care of a few other basic things. On the HTML tag itself, we are directly going to set the foreground color. Very nice, already works. And yeah, I'm going to use the font family Nuneato with a fallback to the operating system sans serif default font. So where do we get that from? fonts.google.com, and yeah, we can simply search there, Nuneato, this one. And yeah, we should select the styles we want to have. I want to have the extra light one. I want to have 400 and 700, and yeah, let's also take 300. Maybe we're going to use it. 900 is a little bit too much. Good, so I want to include this via a link tag. So I'm just going to put this right here after my own style sheet, and it should, yeah, already take effect. Very nice, good. Okay, so I want to have also the default font weight being set to 400 explicitly, and the basic font size to be 18 pixels. It's always a good idea to set this on the HTML tag because we're going to work a lot with rems, and if we have a font size defined on the level of the HTML tag, we are guaranteed that the rems always behave the same way, just as we want. Now for the body, as you can see, the gradient still looks a little bit ugly. We can impose a minimum height of 100 VH, so it looks quite nice. And also let's set up a padding of 2 rems to not have the content stick to the borders. Very nice. Okay, so let's actually take care now of the header itself. This one is going to be a flex container, and it should justify content with space between. We will see later why this is useful, because we're going to put the navigation bar in there. And now for the logo itself, this is also going to be a flex container because I want text and image to be next to each other. So that's how we achieve it. And I want to have everything centered vertically. I like items. Put a center, very nice. Good. So font size is still a little bit too small. Let's set up this for 2 rems. And text transform. Yeah, let's make it actually uppercase so we don't have to do that in the markup. Good. Now the image itself is still a little bit oversized. So we're going to put an explicit height of 2 rems here. Very nice. And to increase spacing between text and the image a little bit more, we are going to put 1 rem of space between the image and the text. Good, very nice. Now that we have the logo, we can actually take care of the navigation, which is simply a nav tag. So we're using semantic HTML, and inside the nav tag we are going to put an unordered list where we have several LIs with a link which is not taking us anywhere, but that's why there's the hash. And inside the link we have an about us page. Yeah, that sounds reasonable. We have, of course, reviews, because there are going to be many awesome reviews, and pricing. Yeah, pricing should be good because we want to earn a lot of money. And next to the pricing, of course, since we're a hosting provider, let's set up a button which is there for signing in. Good. You can see now that there's already a navigation bar, and you see it's ordered vertically. So, and these ugly dots we also want to get rid of. So we're going to start with a little bit of navigation bar styling. So the unordered list inside the nav tag is going to be a list style type of none. So we are getting rid of the ugly dots. Very nice. And actually to make things a little bit more readable, let's directly start with the styling for the A tag, whereas we're going to simply set the default color to the foreground color we have defined before. Very good. And of course, let's get rid of the text decoration because we don't want to have this underlined. And now for the actual navigation bar styling, I want to use a grid container here. And this is going to be an autoflow grid container, which is in horizontal mode. That's why each automatically created item is getting its own column. And let's set also up each auto column to be sized for max content, such that it wraps each new column nicely around the content without forcing it to wrap, and that's why the max is there. Grid auto columns, this should be plural. Very good, because you can see if I put min there, sign in and about us is wrapped, and that's actually not what we want. Okay, so let's also put a little bit of a gap between each item. Very nice. And now for each link, which is inside that unordered list, we want to have a padding, because 0.5 rand, it's actually going to be this much. Let's give a little bit more. Nah, I think so. It's that way it's good. So, okay. And since I also want to be this in uppercase letters, let's also set the text transform to uppercase in this one. Very good. Okay, of course we are going to need some hover styling. Whereas I want to introduce a highlight color. Yeah, very nice. A highlight color would be good. So let's add, we're going to have 2 highlight colors. So let's first define the highlight primary, which is more of a bluish color. We're going to use this in case of the link being active. And we have a highlight secondary I have trouble with this word highlight. Secondary, which is CF0389. So we have it pink here. Good. So whenever we hover that link, the color is going to be the highlight secondary. So we can already check that. Very nice. Okay, and of course I want to have this transitionable. So we transition color and use a variable for all the transitions. So they can use that actually, or define that only once and reuse that multiple times. Ease out. So we can already see that the color is nicely going from white to pink and back again. Good. Now I also want to put something special on each link in the nav bar, which means that we're going to add a small dot below the link whenever it hovers. So we are going to put an after pseudo element, and this one here is really important if you actually want the dot or anything else you put on the after pseudo element show up, because if you forget that, it will never show up. It's completely deactivated. Let's position that absolutely, which also requires me to put this one here into a position relative mode, and because I want to have the absolute coordinates relative to the parent element, which is this one. And yeah, let's actually introduce some more variables, which means that we're going to have a dot size of 0.5 rem and a dot color. By default, let's say it's a highlight primary. Nesting variables I don't really need here. Good. Okay, and let's define that way the width and the height as the dot size. Same again for the height. And yeah, let's actually start making it visible. 2px solid, and we're going to use the dot color. Okay, perfect. But as you can see, it's not a dot, it's a square. So we are going to put a border radius of 50%, which it's, yeah, nicely squared, very shaped. Now for the positioning, let's say that we have top of 100%. Yeah, looks good. And left of 50%. And you can see that it's still slightly shifted to the right, which is the reason why we're going to put a transformation of minus 50% to the left. So half of the element width to the left. And for the height, we're actually going to keep it there. Good. But by default, I don't want this dot to appear every time. So, or all the time. So I'm going to put the opacity to 0 by default. And whenever the link is hovered, the dot needs to show up. So whenever the link is hovered, we again select the after pseudo element and set opacity to 1. So you can see it's showing up, and I want to be the dot color. Variables be always at the beginning. I want the dot color to be the secondary highlight. I really should learn to not write var before. So you can see that always this is going to show up. And let's also make it smooth with a transition. So the opacity is going to transition here, var transition. That's not just the opacity that needs to transition, but it's also the border color that also needs to transition. And I think it would be great if the dot slightly moves. So we are going to put also a transformation by default. Let's say it's going to be at minus 100% by default, and we're going to translate it to 0% upon hover. And that's why we're also going to add the transform property to the transitionable properties. Transition. So, and you can see this nice little effect. As soon as you hover a link, the dot comes floating out. Looks actually quite nice. Now, since we're going to lay out the About Us page, I want this link to stand out a little. So I'm going to give the li tag the class active. because this is the link we're currently on. And for that we are adding a new selector where we have an li of class active, and inside there is the link, which is going to have the color of the highlight primary. So very nice. And the dot color will also be changed to yeah, also let's use the same color here, such that it matches. Would be great. So now I want to also match up that the dot is always visible, which means that we have the same code here. So we just need a second selector, which is this one. Perfect. You can see it's always visible now, because we also need opacity and transform always to set the same value as if it's going to be hovered. Good. Okay. So sign in, I want to also be standout. And this one is a highlighted link, which is why I'm going to call the class highlight. And a link inside there, which is a highlight link. Let's actually copy this one. We have no dot, so we can remove the dot color. The color for white we're going to keep, but let's put a border around it of 1 pixel solid. Not active here, highlight. Yeah, very nice. And it's going to be rounded off, not 50%, but yeah, let's use 1 rem. Yeah, looks good. And now I want to have a different hover effect here. So first thing I want to do is I want to remove the dot, which means that we are going to select the after element and unset the content property. And this is now, well, this is now really wanted, because if you set content to none, the pseudo element does not appear at all. So that's actually what we want here. And for the hover selector, I don't want the secondary highlight here, but I want the color to be the highlight primary color. So actually would be, no, that doesn't look good. Let's say that we have a background color and we are introducing a new color for the highlight, a foreground color for the highlight. Yeah, let's call it that way, highlight FG. So let's introduce a new variable for the highlight, which is going to be 161C49. And now let's see if the hover effect actually works. Yeah, looks good. And the background color is not transitionable as of yet, so let's change that. For each here, let's also set the background color transitionable. I think I messed this one up because, of course, it's not on the after element needed, but on the link itself, which is a good idea to set this there. Yeah, much better. Okay, so that's it, what we're going to do for the nav bar. Now let's take care of the actual content, which is going to be outside the header. And we're using not a min tag, but a main tag for the main portion of our content. And we are having a section element, which has a portion of content. So let's use another div with, now we need to get creative to write some marketing stuff, such that it looks good. Scale well, sleep well. Yeah, very nice. So we have a paragraph of text where I've just prepared a little bit of text. We're just going to put right here. Okay, very nice. And we need the artwork itself. So there we have another div for the artwork, which is going to be appear on the right. And the source is simply an image, an SVG image. So we have that at hand already. And I forgot here to put a link, because here is going to be the learn more link. Very good here, not standing out very well, so we will change all that. Good. Okay, now for the section itself, put a little bit space in here. I want to make it a grid container, but this time I'm going to define it explicitly and not going to use autoflow. I want to have it 2 columns with a size ratio of 1:2, and there is going to be only 1 row which is going to take the entire height which is available. And I want to have these template areas named. So we have on the left side the content and on the right side the artwork. So it's explicitly defined by the style, and the place content should be set to center such that everything is nicely centered. And now for the content itself, let's assign it a grid area, one of the ones we have defined up here. And important here now, here it's put in quotation marks, but no quotation marks here. So we just use content because it's an identifier here. And the same goes for the artwork, where we say that the grid area is artwork without quotation marks. And you can see it's already now assigned to the grid items, so works quite well. Now for the content, I want this one to be on one hand centered and on one hand stretched. So I want to center it vertically but stretch it horizontally so that it takes all the space which is there. And I want to have it aligned well with the image, so it's here now some space and the image is still at the place. Good, okay. And the artwork, just for reason of completeness and explicitly defining it, it's going to be stretched in every dimension, such that it always takes as much space as it needs. Now for the typographic stuff, let's start with the heading, which is going to have a different color. Let's use the highlight primary. Yeah, looks good. And the font size needs to be, let's start with 3 rems. That's a little bit too much, although if we decrease the font weight, 3 rem is still a little bit too much. Let's go to down to 2.5. Yeah, much better. Fits so much better the artwork. And yeah, there's still a little bit much space, so that's why we're going to put a margin bottom of 2 rems. 1 rem, yeah, 1 rem is better. Okay. And now for the paragraph of text itself, we need a little bit of bigger font size, but also a decreased font weight to make it look a little bit more, yeah, 200 is much better, but still the text is a little bit too large. Yeah, like it that way. Good, okay. Now I want to give this link a completely different styling than all the others. So it will get its own class called button. And yeah, where we have the link styling, this is up here. So any button link will have a border around itself, because I want to play around with it for the hover effect. Highlight primary, it's just 1 pixel, and let's say it needs some, how does it actually look? We need some space between the button and the paragraph, which means that we're going to adjust this via a margin on the paragraph itself, 1 rem. Yeah, so it's a little bit more spacious. Good. For the button styling still, it's going to have a background color. Also being set to highlight primary, and the color itself is going to be the highlight foreground. Highlight foreground. Good. Okay, now spacing still a little bit messed up here. Let's define a little bit of a padding, 1.5 rems vertically and 0.5 rems vertically and 1.5 rem horizontally. 0.5 is a little bit too much. Yeah, so much better. And it would look so much nicer if the borders at the corners are slightly rounded off. So we are putting this one here. Good. However, the text is hard to read, which is why I would use font weight of 700 here, and then it's much more readable. Very good. And text transform should be also set to uppercase to make it stand out a little bit more. Now for the hover effect, Still not there yet. Let's add that one. I think it would be nice to just fade out the background, which means that we are setting the background color to transparent. And yeah, text is not readable at that point anymore, so we're going to use the color, the background color actually, so highlight primary. Yeah, very nice, looks good. And let's make this also transitionable, which means that we're adding the background color to the list of transitionable colors. Transition. So, and of course color also, such that it really looks smooth. Wow, transition. You can see it already pays off using vars for all that transitions, because in the amount we're using it, we can just change it in one place and everything adapts to it. Sometimes wanted, sometimes unwanted, but in this case I think it's totally wanted. Yeah, good. Very nice. Now that we have some content on the page itself, it would be good to take a little care of the sizing and positioning in total, which means that we are setting up a little bit more on the body. So let's make it a flex container, which is layouting in column mode. And I want to have everything centered horizontally, which means that if you're running in column mode, if we want to center orthogonally to the main axis, we need to use align items and put everything to center. Yeah, I can see that here this one already shifted to the center, and I want to justified content always at the top, so it's flex start. Good, nothing changed as desired. Okay, so now for the main section, I want this to have a padding of 2 rems, such that it gets a little bit more spacing, and a max width of, let's say, 40 rems. So it's a little bit, 50. Yeah, much better. So if we now shift that here, you can see that it behaves nicely with the layout. Very nice. Okay, so let's keep it that way. And finally the footer. Let's add a footer. That footer is just there to present a few social media icons. So let's add the usual 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And since they're going to be all in the same so let's use a large cursor with, yeah, let's put font awesome icons. Font awesome icons actually the way to go. FAB for the brands, and all these social media icons are located in the brands font. And yeah, since we do not know the concrete items yet, okay, then the item and the I tag is already there, the closing one. So let's start with Twitter. Yeah, and since I don't have the font awesome font yet included, nothing will be visible. Let's go to font awesome, or no, wait, CDN.js does have a nice way of including font awesome, so we're going to put this here. Good. And pay attention to this one here. This is actually quite awesome that CDN.js provides this, because this is the SHA checksum of the content as it should be on the servers of CDN.js. And if the downloaded payload in the user agent differs from the content that should be in the server, so if it's got modified unintentionally, the checksum the user agent calculates differs from that one. And so the style sheet is detected as maybe maliciously changed. That's actually a quite nice security feature. Good, now let's, wait, we're still going for the markup here. Yeah, and here we have the Twitter bird already. Next to the Twitter bird, there's going to be the Facebook F already there. And let's also put Instagram, YouTube, and GitHub. So we have one left. Yeah, LinkedIn is actually something which is LinkedIn typo here. Let's get rid of the box around it. Yeah, that way it looks good. So let's also take care of the styling of the footer. I like it to be a grid layout. So let's put display grid again for the grid auto flow also in column mode, and each auto generated column should have, yeah, let's use min content this time because we have only the icon, and let's put a gap of 1 rem between everything. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, just explicitly state that we want to have justified the content to the center. And now we can see that's still sticking a little bit to the top, so we're actually going to set up a margin to the top of 3 rems, so we can get a little bit space between the footer and the rest, and I think maybe even 4 rem should be better. Yeah, let's put it that way. And for the border, I want to do something special, which means that we are putting a gradient, but you cannot put a gradient nicely on a border. That way we help us with the before pseudo element, which is going to be positioned absolutely, which requires us to put position relative up here. Relative. Let's set up a background gradient here. Gradient of, yeah, 0 degrees running from transparent to the secondary highlight, and again to transparent at 100%. So yeah, perfect. 0, 50, 100. Very nice. But shouldn't be visible yet because we haven't set up positioning yet. So let's put it at 1% on the top, to the very left and to the very right. And the height is going to be maybe 1 pixel. Maybe, yeah, here. Should be 90 degrees on one hand and maybe 1 pixel is a little bit too less. Let's see, maybe, is it actually visible? Border 2px solid red. No, it's actually there. Maybe I made them. Yeah, of course, I wrote gradient and not linear gradient. Still not there. Secondary highlight. Ah, highlight secondary. I switched. Yeah, because if the variable is not defined, nothing happens. Still not. Just to make sure that, no, it's not semicolon. Let's give it a try for red. It's actually there, so there must be wrong with something wrong with my gradient definition. Maybe I'm having a typo, highlight secondary, but still second day. Okay, let's fix that. Because this is actually quite bad. Yeah, very nice. Okay, now it's but still not large enough. We can actually define a width of 80% here. So it gets a little bit wider, and I think we should also put a padding on the top for 1 rem. Yeah, that way it looks much better. Yeah, and actually that's already it. Everything is working, everything's in place. Looks nice. Very good. Okay, yeah. I hope you enjoyed creating this nice little website with me. Make sure you like and subscribe. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for the next episode.